Often our concerns when we're approaching what we conventionally call retirement are purely financial. I can't tell you as a chartered financial planner who's helped people in this aspect of their life for 20 plus years, the amount of conversations where clients come to us and say, I want to know whether I've got enough so I can stop worrying about money. And they're right to worry about that. Having a clear financial plan, clarity on where you are, and then either if you've not got enough, working incrementally towards having enough, or more importantly, if you've got enough, living the life you want with the money you've got is really important to know and understand. But here's the problem. Money alone doesn't equal fulfillment. And whilst I suggest it's definitely a hygiene factor to a life well lived, it's only part of the puzzle. And what if I told you that Aristotle, writing 2,400 years ago, had already figured out that one of the major parts of the puzzle has nothing to do with money, but more about living in a way that allows us to express your vital human capabilities. And that's why in this video I want to talk about eudaimonia, how we can flourish more, particularly in the next chapter of our lives. And I'm going to talk about the 3 parts of eudaimonia and the 9 really practical actions you can take to get more eudaimonic well-being in your life today. Welcome to What Happens Next. One of my favourite interviews that I've ever done on What Happens Next, and I've got quite a lot, but one of my favourites was with a guy called John Dunkley. And John Dunkley talked about how the Greeks used to define both happiness and well-being. You see, the Greeks used to talk about 3 component parts of well-being. Firstly, hedonism, the pure pursuit of pleasure and self-indulgence. Just doing stuff that you actually enjoy and love to do. Then they used to talk about the experience of charonic well-being. That's the art of experiencing awe in our lives. Now, awe can come from our beliefs, and certainly I've spoke to people who are religious who experience awe in their belief of something bigger than them, God. If you're not religious, though, that often comes from experiencing of nature, experiencing of humanity, large groups. We all experience awe in different ways. However, experiencing that awe is part of having a life well lived. You see, eudaimonia, the ancient Greek philosophers used to talk about, consists of 3 component parts which contribute to our human flourishing. The first key component Aristotle used to use when describing eudaimonia is external things. Now, interestingly, the Aristotelians and the Stoics sort of disagreed on this particular point, because the Stoics believed that anything that was outside of us was a contextual backdrop to flourishing. Actually, flourishing meant managing our internal story and view of the world. But Aristotle had a bit of a nuanced version of that, and I think I'm more with Aristotle and the Stoics on this one. See, Aristotle acknowledged the fact that we need friendships and money, and actually part of our identity and purpose in life comes from our social standing. Now, we're not saying that the external elements are the most important, but actually the Aristotelian principle of understanding that they actually matter and count, particularly our relationships and social connections, spending time with people we love and like, I think is correct. And it's interesting because Aristotle, I think, was more realistic when he talked about the fact that we need to recognise that those external factors are really important. So having enough money to live the lives we want, or enough friends or social connections are important. But he also used to identify the fact that some of the internal factors, the factors that we can control, have often more of an impact. And that's why the second key component of eudaimonia is intellectual excellence. If we translate that component from the ancient Greek philosophers to modern terminology, I think it's all about staying curious and enjoying the journey. Now, there's a number of ways you can do this practically if you're thinking about the next chapter of your life. You can join a book club. You can join any club. You can have deep conversations and you can engage and debate ideas. You could also continue to do work that challenges you and provides purpose and meaning in your life. Last but not least is what Aristotle used to call virtues of character, which was often translated to moral excellence. Now, I'm not here to make any moral judgments about anybody, but taking action which gives you true purpose and that allows you to live your life to your values, whatever they are, Aristotle believed was fundamentally important. That might be exhibited by helping people through mentoring or charity or the hundreds of other ways that you can support and serve others through your work, either paid or unpaid. That sounds like generosity to me. This could simply mean getting clearer on your values and living life more aligned to your values as you move into the next chapter of your life. We spoke recently on What Happens Next about cognitive dissonance and the fact that when there's tension between our authentic self and how we behave, that can often add mental stress to our lives that we should think about reducing and avoiding. However, there's a challenge, because the challenge is, how do we apply these ancient Greek philosophies, these millennia old teachings, to our actual lives? And I think the answer to that is through the questions we ask ourselves. And I reckon there's a few that are really important. The first question I'd suggest you ask is, what do you need to truly flourish instead of just survive? I hope you're enjoying the video so far. But before we carry on, let me ask you a quick favour. We're on a real mission with What Happens Next to help people in their 50s and 60s, considering the next chapter of their lives, think about it with a little bit more nuance. Because my experience is, whilst it's important to think about the financial side of what happens next, often we don't talk enough about the other elements of well-being that consist of a life well lived. Now, we've provided 3 free resources you can get access to today. Number one, and all this content is going to be in the comments below so you can get access to it. Number one is the quiz. If you're not sure what elements of well-being you should be thinking about in this chapter of your life, and you want to understand where you might be really strong, but also the areas that might need some improvement, that quiz will help. You can find a link to the quiz in the comments below, but you can also, if you're watching this on a screen and you're using your phone, click on the QR code to get access to it now. We're also publishing a book at the start of 2026. It's currently in the editing process, and you're going to love it, I think, because we're building it to make sure that we help and support people think about the next chapter in their lives in a way that's going to help them flourish. Feel free to click on this QR code if you're watching this and you've got your phone, or click on the comments below and you can sign up for the waiting list for the book today. And what we're going to do is make sure that if you sign up for the waiting list, you're going to have some really free stuff that nobody else gets access to if they just simply buy the book, so that you can make sure that your What Happens Next is informed by all these brilliant tools. The other thing you could do is join our inner circle. Every week we share insights about how to navigate the next chapter of your life successfully. And you could do that again by clicking the comments below. Thank you for your support and have a lovely day. Now, you'll have your own answer to this, but a decent place to start might be by looking at the What Happens Next model we've built, which will highlight the aspects that you want to consider when you're thinking about your own well-being in a range of different areas. Second question is, who are the people that matter to me and how do I nurture those relationships? We know that friendship is vital for flourishing. So this question is all about making sure you've got enough of these social connections of your life and they're deep enough. You're spending enough time with the people you love and like. Thirdly, to improve your eudaimonia well-being, what am I doing to intellectually challenge myself? What am I doing to hone my mind? Am I reading? Am I debating? Am I practicing new skills? And my recommendation is to read the amazing book Mindset by Carol Dweck, which talks about growth and fixed mindset and why a growth mindset and continuous learning is vital when we get older. And this is why this element is so important. Number 4 is, what are my core values and are my behaviours aligned to them? Not living in line with our core values, as I mentioned earlier, has a psychological term. It's called cognitive dissonance, and it's the discomfort we feel when our actions, beliefs and values conflict. Question number 5 is, in what ways am I contributing to others? How am I kind? How am I mentoring and helping other people? And how am I being generous? Purpose in our lives often, and in the main I'd say, is never about us. It's about how we help and support others. And understanding this gives you a decent starting point to a life well lived in the next chapter. Number 6 is, do I have a sense of purpose that guides me beyond financial status goals? Every ancient philosopher, Western and Eastern, knew that having purpose in life beyond stuff, beyond money or status, is a central component to flourishing in life. The question number 7 is, what effort am I putting in even when it's tough? One of the most interesting factors of eudaimonia, and this is different to hedonistic behaviours, is that whilst hedonism is all about relaxation and luxury and stuff that should be relatively easy to do, doing stuff with purpose and meaning isn't always easy. In fact, it can be more satisfying when it isn't. So are you doing the stuff, even when it's tough or difficult or challenging, to actually give your life purpose and meaning? Question 8, and this could be applied to any age of our lives, but certainly during periods of transition, it's definitely important, is, who am I becoming? And what aspects of myself do I want to develop further? From my conversations with clients, the next chapter of our lives when we're thinking about changing our 50s and 60s is often a voyage of self-rediscovery, looking at yourself and seeing who you want to be. So looking at who you want to be and the actions you need to take to become that person are really vital. Lastly, it's about gratitude. So I'd ask yourself the following: what am I grateful for today? My recommendation, it's such a powerful question and so linked to your well-being. I'd ask that of yourself every single day. So that's a brief view of the concept of eudaimonia and the questions we might want to consider asking ourselves when we're thinking about that element of our well-being in the next chapter of our lives. And I share quite a lot about what we can learn from the Stoics about our own next chapter. So here you can find the mind-blowing secrets that we can learn about our own retirement from the Stoics. And I don't only take from Western philosophy to give us ideas. I also love Eastern philosophy. And for the tips that Eastern philosophy can give us about at the next chapter of our lives, you can take a look at that here. Hopefully that was useful. Feel free to comment below with your thoughts, suggestions, tips on the videos we should be producing next. And feel free also to like this video if it's been of value and subscribe to the channel. And we'll see you next time on What Happens Next.